Good morning, class 12s. So, we've reached the last chapter of your second book, that is Social Movements. I hope you all are studying, and please go through the videos and also read your text because I've not completed, I've not taught you line by line, and I've taught only which needs to be explained, okay? So, please, you read for yourself. So, today we are going to do the chapter Social Movement. So social movement basically means all these movements that takes place for when people fight for their rights, when they stand up for something that they require or which is not good in the society. Okay, so movements that arise with the aim of bringing about change on a public issue can be termed as social movement. For example, right of the tribal to use the forest. So here they're saying that those movements which emerge with the objective that a particular change has to be brought in certain issue in a society is known as social movement. So earlier there were a lot of social movements, and even now there are a lot of social movements. So like for example, there was movement for the removal of sati system, for the removal of child labor. Okay, so for example, right of the tribal to use the forest, like how the tribals were displaced from their own lands, they were not allowed to use the forest with the coming of the Britishers. So there was a movement claiming that the tribal should be able to use the forest land. So that is what social movement is. And social movements arise to bring about changes in the system. However, counter movement arise in the favor of the system. So how social movement arise claiming that certain things should not be there or certain things should be there. In opposition to that, there is counter movement which comes about, which says that no, this particular is legit, it has to be there. Okay, they oppose the social movement. For example, that is an example of counter movement. Movement for education of girl was counter-attacked by a movement claiming that this would cause a disaster. So a social movement which claimed that girls should be educated, education of girls is very important. Then there was another movement which opposed that social movement and claimed that no, this is not good and women should not be educated. Okay, so that is a counter movement. There are some examples given in your textbook, please read. So social movements cannot bring change instantly. Okay, so it's not like you start a social movement right now and then you start seeing changes in the society. It is not that. It may face many opposition like that of counter movement. However, in the long run, it does bring desired changes. However, social movements, it does bring desired changes in the long run. So, a social movement requires a collective. It is a collective action. So, it requires a group of people. It cannot take place individually. Maybe, maybe one particular individually they can initiate it, but then slowly it will form a group, and they will, you know, bring the move their movement forward. So, it is a collective action. It is the action of a group of people. Movements may be directed against the state, stating a change in the policies. So, social movements may emerge stating that certain policy should be removed, a certain policy should be formulated. The movement must be organized and the members must share common ideologies and objectives. So yeah, if people they do not have common objectives, they do not have common understanding and they do not have common ideas, how will a social movement survive and flourish? So people they should have shared ideologies and objectives, the ideas, the beliefs, understanding of the people of the member of the group that is initiating the movement must be same, and the movement must also be organized. It, it's not like the movement will just go with the flow, but it should be planned, okay, and organized. Next, social movement holds meeting for developing shared understanding. So the people they hold meetings, they meet and they share their ideas and they come up with a common understanding. Social movements develop distinct modes of protest, use of black cloth, songs, poetry, candle and torch procession, etc. Yeah, social movement it's not very violent, okay? So people in solidarity they just you know they wear a black cloth. Like recently in Kathmandu there was this protest where all of the women, they were wearing black clothes, and they were like, singing and dancing in the heart of the valley. So I think that was maybe against something, some issue with women, I forgot. And they sing songs, and there is all these silent rallies, I think you have seen that. And this candle procession is very famous. So we move to the next point, that is theories of social movement. So there's like about, I think, three theories what that is given. So according to the theory of relative deprivation, social conflict arises when a social group feels that it is worse than the other groups. So they are feeling deprived. In this theory states that social movement, it comes about when one group feels that they are deprived. They do not have things that other groups have. They do not have the same status, same economic or political power. That is when social movement arises. So they are saying that they feel that they are inferior to the other group. The theory emphasizes on psychological factors like rage, which influences social movement. So they are saying that in this theory of relative deprivation says that social movement comes about because people are they're like, because of their psychological factors like anger. Okay, however, the limitation of the theory is that deprivation isn't enough to begin a social movement. So people criticize this theory, saying that just because you are deprived, just because you don't have things that other group have, will not initiate a social movement. So next one is Olson's book, The Logic of Collective Action, argues that social action is an aggregate of rational individual actors pursuing their self-interest. So this person, he says that social action, like I mean, this movement, social movement, it begins when like a group of people who are practical, who are rational, they, in order to achieve certain things of their self-interest, they begin a movement. So a person will join a social movement only if there is something to gain and the risks are low. So this person is saying that any individual will join a certain movement only when, like, he has something to gain, when there is something which will be of advantage to him and there will be no risk. That is when a person will join a social movement. Olson's theory was criticized by McCarthy and Zeld, and this McCarthy and Zeld argues that if movement can bring together leadership, organizational capacity, communication facility, it is more likely to be effective. So McCarthy and Zell says that if a particular movement has the ability to be, organized, have a good leadership, and be communicate well with each other, that is when a movement will be effective. Okay, so we'll do till here in this video. Please read up till here, and then in the next video we'll begin another subtopic.